election if needed, then we can't really give you specific advice on that, but that's about how it works.
So, Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to then ask, if there is no runoff, because there's no runoff, it would have to go on a special election?
That's correct.
Okay. And what would that cost again? I forget.
President Lewis and Councilor Gardino, the special election that was held this past March was around $600,000, and that's the amount that we have budgeted for a runoff as well.
Okay. So we're on the hook for $600,000 if he doesn't make the other windows or the other possibilities of a ballot.
President Lewis and Councilor Gardino, as the charter is and the legal deadlines that are in place surrounding the charter, election law in general, there would need to be a special election.
And there's nothing we can do about that.
President Lewis and Councilor Gardino, the law is clear the way the charter is written.
I think at this point what did you say, Ms. Bailey? 90 days, we have to have an election 90 days after you certify the
Lewis, what it says is that the charter specifies that it's 90 days after the petition deadline, which is August 28th. So it would have to be 90, I'm sorry, I think it's 27th actually. So it would have to be 90 days from that point.
it would cost the same as the minimum wage special election. Well, not the minimum wage, that actually was one of the state ballot, I believe. It was the last one, which was the
It was the charter amendment, yes,
the
sir.
charter amendment. Yeah. Okay. Other questions for the administration? Councilor Benton.
No questions, but a quick couple of thank yous. I want to thank South Commander Mike Geyer and the Southeast Impact Unit. Swift attention to a property crime in the serious property crimes in the Netherwood Park area. I also want to thank Valley Commander Jeremy Craig for response and investigation leading to an assault incident downtown. And that did occur on the 4th Mall, and really that's merited it. We need to take it sooner rather than later.
Councilor Sanchez.
Mr. President, I would like to acknowledge and recognize Kathy Quirk from the ABQ School in the audience today for all of her work on the new APS stadium. Thank you very much, Kathy. And also Dr. Brad Winter, who hosted this weekend a tour of the new APS facility. It's an incredible, and Dr. Winter, thank you very much for all of your work and your commitment to and what you told you were going to do on that particular stadium. I think that APS today, Kathy, you guys did. Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Board member reports also West Side, we appreciate all the service that they give to the community there. Councilor Gardino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have been receiving, I'm sure you have also, Council, emails about folks who are not paying the minimum wage. And I know this is an old issue, but I'd like to visit it again. Exact wording from city attorney as to why it is that we're not pursuing these complaints, and I assume these complaints are knowledge to the city, and not glad to forward those emails and act the names of it, so you know that there are indeed a number of people complaining about not receiving their minimum wage, which is a city ordinance. I don't know what you have to say about that.
Councilor Gardino, please forward those emails.
Okay.
We're not aware of them. I have Mr. Wheeler here, who is the assistant city attorney. He fields the calls for people who want to complain about not receiving minimum wage, and he has not received those. So if you can forward them to me, I'll make sure he gets them, and we can contact those people. Please not redact their names, because then we would have no one to call.
Well, the information is, I think, at this point, probably public, so I'd be glad to do that.
Okay.
What I don't want is emails to just go to Ethernet and with them sending it to us and then nothing being done. And I think last time that the only thing that the city office was going to do is to refer them to a private lawyer or a firm that might take on that case, right?
Mr. President, Councilor Gardenia, correct.
And that's the only thing we're going to do.
Now, make sure that they have contact with a private attorney or legal. The private attorneys will be able to obtain attorney's fees and costs of the ordinance by going forward on behalf of the individual saying he's not getting minimum wage or she's not getting minimum wage. If the city office did that, we wouldn't get our attorney's fees and costs. We are doing a test. Everyone knows the malt shop. We have brought litigation against the malt shop. We are that. We have been pursuing that for a long time. We're in the discovery phase now. But if there are other individuals, they have not contacted the city office.
Well, I'll contact them in return and pursue it through your office. And then furthermore, when that happens, I would think that anybody that's not abiding by an ordinance that was passed by the council, that the city attorney would then make sure that, or safety or somebody would follow up and make sure that that ordinance is being upheld. And I would suggest that when that comes to your office, a phone call or some kind of communication with the perpetrator, the person who's not paying that minimum wage, then is apprised of the fact that the city's aware and some activity would happen after that.
We have done that, Mr. President, Councilor
And
Gardenia.
I'll send that.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Administration? Jones?
Mr. President and Mr. Turk, lines, and also with Councilor Gardenia, I have received many emails regarding the minimum wage, and I have called on several of them, and they all have a similar theme. When I ask who the employer is, I don't get an answer, and I read the ordinance, unless we know who the employer is, then there is no crime, and there's nothing that we can act against. And this is a serious issue. We need to tell people that when they're writing to us, we need to know that, otherwise we can do nothing. Did I misread this?
Mr. President, Councilor Jones, no, you did not. I have Mr. who has received phone calls, but they won't give their names, they won't say who the employer is, and there have been 3 phone calls in the last 2 weeks since the last city council when somebody got said, well, the city's not doing it, the county's doing it, and they will not give their names. So if you do have them, Councilor Gardenia, I would appreciate to know who they are, because every employer is paying the minimum wage. That is the law of the city. Now, who's enforcing that? It is made under the charter or ordinance. This county doesn't, as was represented. The county took the section that we have in our ordinance. They took out the attorney may enforce the requirements of the ordinance. We did not put it in there. That is an option, but we make sure that they get in contact with an attorney. Private attorneys have contacted me and will have the time to do a good job. Legal aid, I've been in contact with them. They will do a good job.
Respond. Thank you, Councilor Arnold Jones. Sometimes people do not want to give information to anybody that's called unless they're going to get a result. But I'll make sure that the folks are concerned about the ordinance not being held, that they in fact get a hold of you, or somehow that you don't feel comfortable doing that. I'd be glad to be the ombudsman for them and for you.
Mr. President, Councilor Gardenia, you can send me those emails directly and to Mr. Greg Wheeler at the City Attorney's Office.
Another quick follow-up, Mr. Torek, when you private attorneys who are willing to take the cases, pro bono, or would the people be paying retail?
Mr. President, Council, that is a misconception. People do not, you're not paying money to get an attorney. We're not charging for representing the individual in the mall shop. Those attorneys are obtained similar to a civil rights claim. You get those from the losing party. When you prevail, those employees, they're not going to have to front money to have representation. Private attorneys would get their costs back from the employers.
Understood. So that was my question. Thank you for answering.
Move to adjourn. Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President.
second for approval. Return, all those in favor say yes. Yes. Those opposed, no. Motion passes. We go to communications and introductions. Any changes to the letter of introduction?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of placing R-219 on tonight's agenda for final action. R-219 is the exhibit to resolution R-13-174 regarding voting for the regular municipal election to be held in the city of Albuquerque on Tuesday, 2013.
A motion is second. The rules for the purpose of placing R-219 on tonight's agenda for final action. Those in favor say yes. Those opposed, no. The motion passes. The rules be suspended for the purpose of introducing OC-14, placing it on the 16th council agenda for final action. OC-14 is Patricia Risto, the Accountability and Government Oversight Committee. Those in favor say yes. Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Also amend the letter of introduction to refer EC 492 to the Land Use Planning Committee instead of the Finance Committee. EC 492, Grand Boulevard and Candelaria Road intersection reassessment. Motion is second to refer EC 492 to the Lux Committee instead of Finance. Those in favor say yes. Yes. Those opposed, no. And that motion passes. I amend the letter of introduction R-217 on the September 16th council agenda being referred to the Finance Committee. R-217 is calling for to study the salaries of Albuquerque Police Department officers and officers of other local enforcement agencies and designated funds to be used to contract with the firm for completion of the survey. So this is councilors placing R-217 actually on the September 16th council agenda instead of to the Finance Committee. Those in favor say yes. Those opposed, no. That motion passes. I move approval of the letter of introduction. Motion second for approval of the letter of introduction. Those in favor yes. Those opposed, no. And that passes. Go to report. Councilor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance and Government Operations Committee met on Monday, August 2013, reports up the following items. In the matter of EC 447, 452, and 458, that receipt be noted. In the matter of EC 457, 459, and 461, that it be approved. In the matter of EC 468, that it be approved and acted on the meeting, which is reported. In the matter of R-187, 191, 193, 194, 195, 199, 206, and 206, that they be passed. In the matter of R-200, R-209, that they be passed and be acted on at the meeting are reported. In the matter of O-53, that Howard was substituted. In the matter of R-190, that it be passed. I move to accept the committee report of financial plans.
Motion to accept the committee report. Those in favor say yes. Those opposed, no. Go to deferrals and withdrawals. Councilors need deferrals and withdrawals at this time. Councilor Myers.
Yes, I was going to defer R-163 until September 16th. This is the amendment of the city's project recommendations to the mid-regional governments for the inclusion of the 2035 Metropolitan Transportation Plan to remove the Rio Grande area safety improvement project, and we deferred until we have a public meeting with regard to the update.
The motion is second to defer R-163 on September 16th. Those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Welcome, sir.
The United States congressional law has made us one nation under God. Over the years, for the countless blessings God has bestowed and the future will bestow on our beloved city of Albuquerque and its residents. This evening, with silent enthusiasm, let us all kick off the upcoming election with the spirit of gratitude to our Creator, and equally as important, let us treat one another with wisdom, dignity, and kindness. For that is the will of God. And furthermore, in God we trust, our national motto. Mr. President, council members, for many years on a volunteer basis, I had the honor and privilege of working with the distinguished Pearl Harbor survivors. Public safety was one of their major priorities. Councilor Isaac Benton and his policy analysts are well aware of that, because for the past 7 years, they have prepared the annual Pearl Harbor Council proclamation, honoring those that died and those that survived the December 7th, 1941 sneak attack on Pearl Harbor. Thank you, Councilor Benton and your assistant. We appreciate you very much. Mr. President, we'd like to invite Councilor Benton to speak on behalf of the council, if you'll permit that.
Pardon me, Joe? I do want to thank you for all your work with the Pearl Harbor survivors, Joe, and I also appreciate your bringing the message of participation by our general public in the upcoming election and fostering an atmosphere of respect and mutual respect among all those who are participating and running in that election. Thanks.
I reiterate, we appreciate people very much. We appreciate all the council for the 30 years you've been passing an annual proclamation. The mayor is also, past mayor, they've also been very cooperative. They are very with executive orders. We thank them.
Mr. Green, your time is up. Thank you very much for coming down.
If I will, I have some closing statements that are very important. In closing, Mr. President, I have been inspired by the survivors' beliefs, especially its last president, Raymond Baker, to come before you this evening. For that valid reason, I state, we are hopeful the October 8th municipal election will have the greatest voter turnout ever in the history of our city. Raymond Baker firmly believed our democratic form of government is the greatest on earth, and it deserves and works best when all qualified citizens participate in elections for the all-important. Thank you, God bless you.
Thank you. Andres Valdez, followed by Joe Gallegos, and then Jordan Welch.
Bringing good officers to council to protect, while you protect the bad ones, eh? Except for Councilor Ken Sanchez, I usually address the council with respect, but not today, you bunch of hypocrites. About the Police Oversight Task Force, Isaac Benton, you promised to support us at the protest against fracking, and you lied. Not even a consideration for Silvio Delangela. I smelled a rat when you first supported Darren White for Public Safety Director. I hope you lose your election. I'd like to say that Ray Garduno, you little vindictive so-and-so, you accused us of letting your critics bring up a shoplifting charges against you. We did it in the spirit of keeping elected officials accountable. You're a disgrace to our raza and the progressive community too that you serve. Councillor Dan Lewis, an ordained minister, you phony Christian. Well, what does Jesus say about you, you and your kind in the Bible? Matthew 23:23. A modern day scribe and Pharisee, eh? Hypocrites, for you pay tithes. This is Matthew 23:23. Hypocrites, for you pay tithes of mint, anise, and cumin, and you neglect the weightier matters of the law, which is justice, mercy, and faith. Go tell your congregation that, would you? Blind guides, who strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. In the name of Jesus, may he render you justice. Don Harris, you and the mayor.
Joel Gallegos, followed by Jordan Welchel.
I have a few choice words that I wanted to finish, can I?
Sir, thank you.
Not me, huh?
Joel Gallegos, Jordan
All
Welchel,
righty.
and Cindy Hodge. Cindy Hodge.
Hello, council members. My name is Joel Gallegos. I'm with the Answer Coalition, and I'm here to pledge my commitment to defending women's rights. And I reject the attempts by anti-women, anti-abortion, right-wing reactionaries who are waging an attack on women's rights. We have a pledge here for people to sign if they're interested. And it's also a shame that women are the most vulnerable when it comes to social issues, making 75 cents to the dollar that a man makes. But these shameful circumstances are only compounded when a city that refuses to enforce a minimum wage increase and just simply suggests a private legal counsel. The city of Albuquerque does recognize the accomplishments of some women, though, such as Officer Leah Cotta, when I knew her, she was Leah Kelly, who was honored here today. Akata's other accomplishments, which you may not know, is falsely arresting me in 2008 and then not showing up to court. That was dismissed. Officer Akata also shot a mentally ill man by the name of Chandler Todd Barr, who was armed with a deadly butter knife, and most recently arresting Christian missionaries for the outrageous crime of feeding the poor, from which the victims of the arrest were awarded roughly $40,000 each in a settlement. But mainly I'm up here so that I can defend women's rights, because I feel that you don't have to be a woman to be a feminist, and you don't have to be a woman to join the feminist movement. And I think it's very important that we protect our sisters and our mothers who so that they can have access to safe forms of birth control, whether that include abortion or not. I don't think that any woman actively looks for an abortion, being as that it takes its toll on the human body so badly. But if they do need one for any circumstances, we fully support that. Thank you.
Jordan Welchel, followed by Cindy Hodge, and Gloria
Mr. President, council members, thank you for having me today. My name is Jordan Welchel. I am an organizer with the Answer Coalition, an organization which, among other things, devotes itself to the struggle for women's equality. I would like to voice my profound objection to the proposed law banning abortions after 20 weeks. Women have been legally and culturally marginalized in American society for centuries. The decision of Roe v. Wade represented a breakthrough in recognizing the dignity and rights of women to be masters of their own bodies. This decision quite plainly states that the restriction of abortions on an arbitrary timescale, such as 20 weeks, is unconstitutional. Of course, I fully endorse alternatives to abortion. If based on circumstances or personal values, a woman wishes not to terminate the pregnancy, that is her decision and should be respected. But unequivocally denying the option of abortion, especially based on an unconstitutional and unscientific restriction on time, must not be allowed. There are states which have chosen to ignore the letter of the law and have set women back 40 years in doing so. I hope New Mexico will not join their ranks. Those present in the audience who agree with me are welcome to sign the petition in the lobby, which Joel showed you. I would also like to express my utmost support for those here tonight who are demanding that the new minimum wage law be upheld. I sincerely thank Councilor Garduño for pressing the issue and urge others on the council to be diligent in defending the rights of workers and not to be surprised when they're intimidated from speaking their minds. These issues both harken to a fundamental axiom, that the highest virtue is to support the most downtrodden and marginalized among you. Women and workers are taking a stand for their rights, and I hope you will stand with them. Thank you.
Cindy Hodge, followed by Gloria and
So this is my first time attending a city council meeting, but I felt very compelled to come out this evening because women's rights are issues that I feel very strongly about, beyond strongly. Women's reproductive rights are not an issue of morality. It is an issue of respect and bodily autonomy. It is not any of the city of Albuquerque's business what a woman chooses to do with her body and her life, especially when cuts are constantly being made to social programs that would support the child some would force her to have. I don't tell any of you what to do with your body, and I do not appreciate if people try to tell me what to do with mine. This anti-abortion measure is anti-women. It is my body, my choice, my life. My name is Sydney Hodge, and I believe in personhood for women, and I am against the anti-abortion measure.
Gloria Levar, Diane Albert,
Hi, my name is Gloria Rebar, and I'm a member of the Answer Coalition. During the last month, I've been hearing a lot about a group calling itself Operation Rescue and its affiliates. They have invaded Albuquerque and are in cities across this country. Their last stop was Wichita, where they incited so much hate a doctor was assassinated. Despite their long history of violence, Mayor Berry welcomed them with open arms into our city, knowing nothing about their violent history. Since they have been in Albuquerque, they had sent a mob to the Holocaust Museum, causing it to close down for the whole day. They also sent a mob to a beloved Albuquerque doctor's home, whose wife and 3 children were in the home, and they were held captive in there. They could not leave their own home because of this group, shouting obscenities, and they had bullhorns. They have done the same thing to clinics across the city who perform late-term abortions. They've been passing out postcards that look like wanted posters, but they list the doctor's names and home addresses. Despite all that has already happened, Mayor Berry approves of everything except the closing of the museum. This group has stated it is here to get rid of the terrorists, meaning anyone who is pro-choice. They have already provided the City Council with enough signatures to stop abortions after 20 weeks. Men should not have a say in what a woman does with her own body. If this law goes through, and a woman has a problem at 20 weeks or longer with her pregnancy, she will have to be flown out of Albuquerque to another hospital to save her life. I would like the men present.
Diane Albert, followed by Betty Atkinson, and then Joe Quintero.
Am I done?
Yes, yes.
Noon tomorrow, there is a rally at Civic Plaza.
Thank you for coming. Diane Albert, and then Betty Atkinson, Joe Quintero. If you all would come to the front row here and be ready to speak when you're next. Miss Albert?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. My name is Diane Albert, and I am a member of the Greater Albuquerque Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'm an 8-year member. It's a
Yeah, it's true, baby, feel pain. Cause my little baby felt pain on May the 10th, 2011. Alan Gomez got shot back by APD. He was unarmed. That's why I've been coming here for the past 2.5 years. Again, APD makes national negative headlines on the New Mexico Attorney General questioning Mary Hahn investigation. I hope the people of the city realize how significant the Attorney General's findings are. This is real proof of collusion and corruption by our city leaders. I don't care if you like Hay or Dinelli, but people, we need to vote Barry and his entire criminal family out of power. Lie after lie has to be backed up by more lies until they forget where the lies start and end. This is a big mess that the Berry administration has done. Mayor Berry never admits accountability. He is in charge, and he is a coward.
Trina Wheeler, Joseph Torres, and then Israel Chavez. Ms. Wheeler here. If you'll please come and sit in the front row right there and be ready to speak when your time is next. So Joseph Torres will follow Trina Wheeler, and then Israel Chavez and Nora Anaya.
Hello. I want to start by thanking you for having me and the rest of your speakers as well. I moved to Albuquerque a couple of years ago to be close to my grandkids. And I've learned a few things. New Mexicans are proud of their culture and their families. And their families they hold dear. I know you wouldn't be up there if you didn't know that. So I'm here to talk about the proposed bill, sorry, a little out of breath, the proposed bill to restrict women's access to reproductive health care. Families make those choices, and they don't need their neighbors or their city councilors telling them, or me, how to make that choice one way or another. I'm not asking you to decide one way or another whether abortion is right or wrong, but I am asking you to respect families. New Mexicans deserve that. Thank you.
Mr. President, distinguished councilwomen and men, I'm here tonight as a fellow citizen to ask that when we have these type of discourse that we would also maintain a level of respect and dignity. You know, it's one thing to debate policy, it's one thing to have a conflict with somebody, but when we move to slander and using verbal lacerations on the council, I just feel that we're being counterproductive. And I would just really ask that, you know, as we continue these dialogues, of course we're in an election season, everybody's, you know, a little on the maybe tense side and really trying to, you know, serve their constituents and so on and so forth. So, you know, one thing I notice is that many times when there's a tragedy, that people rally to prayer. But I just believe that we should have prayer in advance and prevent tragedies here in our city. So, Father, I ask that in your holy name of your Son, that you would bring peace to our city, that you said a city divided against itself will not stand. And as we go through this election season, I pray that you would bring us closer together, closer to you, that we'd be able to respect women, we'd be able to respect each other, we'd be able to respect the unborn, and we would have some dignified conversations and dialogue. And Lord, a city that is engaged is less likely to be enslaved. And Lord, we thank you for this. In the name of your holy Son, Jesus of Nazareth, I pray. Amen.
Israel Chavez and then Nora Anaya, followed by Ray Dominguez.
Good evening, councilors, Mr. Chairman.
On the basis of race, color, religion, sex, national origin or ancestry, age, and physical handicap. In Albuquerque, little people with Down syndrome are put to death for having one extra gene. 90% of those diagnosed in the womb with this extra gene are put to death by abortion. And Planned Parenthood was willing to accept $450 targeted to put to death a little African-American child. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
John Newton was a cruel slave trader more than 200 years ago. John Newton brought and bought slaves along the coast of Africa. He chained them in dark, stifling, hellish conditions for weeks below deck on his slave ship. John Newton later confessed that many of those African men, women, and youth died from his miserable confinement. They were buried in the ocean. John Newton kidnapped, tortured, and murdered these human beings. But eventually, Newton woke up. He turned from his evil. He became a strong leader to stop slavery. He changed from a cruel slave trader to a passionate crusader against slavery. He wrote the words to the beloved song, Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. No matter what evil we have done, we can wake up, we can change. I am not religious. However, I know we can change from our stupid, evil ways. That includes the young man who attacked me August 4th on Central Avenue. Bullies can change, and some do change. I strongly recommend the new documentary, Bystanders Against Bullying, this Tuesday, August 20th, 7 p.m., KOB TV, Channel 4. Tuesday, August 20th, 7 p.m., Channel 4.
Barbara Galinsky.
I'm sorry?
So next is Sylvia Belangelo, followed by Michelle Radicott. Are you Ms. Galinsky? Okay. Again, if you're next to speak, if you'll sit in the front row, please, and be ready to speak when your time is next. Welcome.
President Lewis, council members, thank you for listening to me today. As a 48-year resident of Albuquerque, I want to thank Project Defending Life for bringing the brutality of New Mexico's current late-term abortion laws to the forefront of our attention.
Council President, councilors, Janice and the rest of you, it was just a sham with these, running these police officers up here. You know, I think it's cover for Chief Banks after the Mary Hahn revelation. You know, I didn't see you honor any returning Afghanistan vets or Iraqi vets. The only publicity vets get is when you shoot them in the back, like Vincent Woods. Or you shoot them like Ken Ellis. That's great publicity. It's a sham. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. I don't mind the cop, but Leah Kelly being honored here, she tried to kill that young man downtown with this butter knife. I gave you a copy of my presentation. You're not going to give me enough time to say it. You know, you nine are really a disgraceful lot. You know, you're enablers of the culture of corruption here. And as is Mayor Barry, and he needs to go. And Mayor Barry won't even show at the Tea Party debate tomorrow. He's gutless because he can't defend his record. You know, there's a lot of people in this city that likely wish that your family members or friends are murdered or brutalized by Chief Banks, his scumbag cops, just to get your attention. Does that bother you? My neighbor was killed, and it bothered me in 2010, and you don't give a damn. You don't absolutely give a damn. You got a POC, and you got a task force. It's a sham. You absolutely got a sham, and Laura wouldn't even reveal the names of them. You know, you ought to tell the 3 cops that you appointed to resign. You know, I'll see you at the task force meeting, and read the letter that this ridiculous cop wrote that said squealers, people honest cops, ought to be crucified like Paul Hay. That guy ought to hang.
Michelle Radicott, followed by
Thank you.
Miskey, and then Mike Alvarez. Your last name, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Rassicot, no
Thank
worries.
you.
Good evening, President, council members, and citizens of Albuquerque. My name is Michelle Rassicot, and I'm a family nurse practitioner here in Albuquerque, and this is Michael. Prior to returning home, I was a captain in the United States Army. I have served as a trauma and flight nurse in Iraq and Afghanistan. I came here today to speak of my experiences while deployed and the correlation I see unfolding in our city today. While in Afghanistan, I helped a provincial reconstruction team build a women's clinic in Ghazni. In addition, I helped women obtain needed reproductive services, and I did dismounted combat patrols throughout Afghanistan. Above all else, I took care of soldiers, which is a privilege that not many have. What concerns me today is that the proponents of this ballot initiative want to ban access to abortions and are using tactics that are similar to what I saw when I was deployed. And I have deployed for 2 years and 3 deployments. What they are doing is using things like intimidation, fear, harassment, and violence. These are out-of-state and out-of-touch groups that compare a safe and medical procedure to a Holocaust. They instill fear to the public by using inaccurate and fake images, and they harass medical professionals in front of their homes. These tactics are only designed to instill fear and intimidation to New Mexico, and we need to reject these. When I returned home, I expected to serve as a family nurse practitioner in the community in which I was raised. However, the action of the past several months has made me a concerned citizen. As a medical provider, and a veteran, a daughter, a sister, and your constituent, I'm asking you for 2 things. I want you to ensure the safety of our city members and work with the police department to stop this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Kathy Miskey. Mr. Miskey, you're next. And then you're Mr. Alvarez? Okay, you're next.
Well, my name is Dad Niemiecki. I got a lot, so many issues, not much time to. But anyway, let me, first of all, I know that Miss Amy Bailey is not city clerk, not here. I want to thank you to her for helping me obtain some, well, specifically elected official financial disclosure. All councils and Richard Bailey, which is right here. Anyway, what can you say? Not much. You have to look at, then to, I have Roxanne Mayer. Well, I can see her financial statement and her memberships everywhere. What that has to do? Well, if you put these 2 together, Mayor Bailey proposed, and Ms. Roxana Mayer sponsored the specific issue. I don't want to go to the detail, I don't have time. Let me go to public issue, say the issue, what I left out. That was 7:40, July 5th. Shootout, the most busy intersection, and that was Friday afternoon. Circle K, which is, what the picture can you get? How can you see it? Anyway, don't forget, don't leave Levi Chavez. Well, that also has connection with Rosanna. Thank you, we'll come back next week.
Thank you. Mike Alvarez, Bob Martinez, and then John Daniel.
This is the first time I've spoken in front of you folks. I know King Township for many, many years, and I finally got to the point where I need to speak. I just need to talk about 3 certain things. Number 1, Ray has said earlier that to stop passing the buck and blaming people. But when something goes wrong in the city, who do we blame? The person that's at fault. Not the people behind me, not the citizens, but the ones that are in charge. The ones that are in charge are the ones that are supposed to take care of our situations in this world that are for our kids to grow up, being somebody like us or yourselves, and we need the help. If we didn't need the help, we wouldn't be here. Another thing too that what I would like to speak about is Mayor Berry. I've noticed that there's a lot of construction going on in Albuquerque, and I've heard a lot of the construction that he plans on doing on over there by the freeway. Has he gotten the 3 bids that are supposed to be by law? You know, we got a bid on the lowest bidder, and I went to the city hall, and I don't know nothing about them getting 3 bids. He saved money for the freeway construction, but yet there hasn't been 3 corporations that have bid on any of the jobs that we got here in Albuquerque. And that's about the only thing that I can remember. That I can't remember the third thing. But I would like to ask you folks for the help to check on the things that's going on around us. I've noticed that some of you didn't pay too much attention to a lot of the speakers, but we need to pay attention to what goes on around us for safety.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bob Martinez, John Daniel, and Amber Hayes.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. Thank you for your service. I know you have a tough job. I know many of you, and I know all of you for that matter, and some of you I know better than others. I especially want to thank you this evening for recognizing the fine men and women, my brothers and sisters in the APD. They epitomize the fine work of all the officers within the police department. My name is Bob Martinez. I'm the New Mexico president of Fernal River Police and a resident of District 9. Parenthetically, I want to add that the Fernal River Police was founded almost 100 years ago, in 1915, by 2 street cops in Pittsburgh that were concerned about wages, work conditions, and respect for police officers. That concern exists today. It hasn't changed. The issues of police retention and service should not be a political or campaign issue and addressed only at times when elected officials are running for office for wanting votes. Police officers and their families should not be used as political footballs. Indeed, I may applaud the proposal before you, R-13-212, in attempting to address the issues of police retention and recruitment in APD. But I must add that these are too little, too late. Problems of recruitment and retention are an ongoing problem or difficulty to be addressed continuously. The questions of why do we have this problem and what are the institutional and systemic problems should be answered. The police officers on the street are not the problem, and he or she is not only interested in money. Public safety is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year concern, not only once a month at some meeting or another. In closing, I ask that you support the work environment conducive of providing a good place to work for our officers, also to support discussions with the APOA that represent the rank and file of the APD, the stakeholders. Thank you.
John Daniel, followed by Amber Hayes, and then Paige Miller.
Mr. President, councilors, I'm John Daniel. I beg your indulgence one more time to talk about the Jefferson Middle School.
I should say to create a model that can be implemented at other APS schools across the city.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Vidalya Gruber, and then Dan Majewski.
She's the one who wants to speak.
Okay, thanks. Dan Majewski, followed by Scott Hale.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I am the author of the piece that Chad just referenced on urbanabq.com. And
Joan Sanford had to leave, and as a member of the coalition, she asked me to read her statement.
Okay, so say your name again.
Pardon?
Your name again?
Carla Josephson.
Okay, thank you. And you're speaking for who again?
Joan Sanford.
For Joan Sanford. Okay. And Mary Joby is not here. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
President Lewis, City Council members, hello and thank you. My name is Joan Lemonian Sanford. I am the director of the New Mexico Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, which is a coalition of progressive faith groups and denominations and individuals of faith and conscience. We are here tonight to let you know that we understand that although the city charter is clear on the actions you may take on the proposed ballot measure,
As people of faith and conscience, we want you to understand that the members of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice oppose this measure. We oppose it because we know that our faith does not give simple and easy answers to complex and difficult questions, including the question about if and when to end a pregnancy. It doesn't promise to spare us from making tough decisions. It just promises that we won't have to face those choices alone. We oppose it because as people of faith, we know that God understands the real-life complex decisions that a woman must face every day, and we reject the ridiculous notion that there is or can be a rule for every occasion. We oppose it because we know that every pregnancy is different, and while our various religious traditions may teach various things about when, if, and how we should sacrifice ourselves for others, no one, not voters, not city councilors, not out-of-state missionaries, no one gets to decide what is or is not an appropriate sacrifice for a woman to make. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's take a break. We'll be back about 8 o'clock.
Hey people, I thought I'd just get out of play this morning around 4 o'clock.
Yeah, if I